11 inches.
Call to order the Okeechobee Utility Authority regular meeting of March, this Board of Directors regular meeting of March 13th, 2018. It's 8:31 a.m. I get everybody to please stand and join me with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 1, we're going to determine the voting members. Ms. Melanie Anderson.
Present.
Tommy Clay.
Here.
John Priestman's here. Jeff Fagley.
Present.
Harry Moldenhauer.
Here.
Mike Myers.
Here.
Steve Nelson.
Here.
Derek Tremaine
Derek is out.
is absent. He'll be here. All right, item number 2 on our agenda today is the election of officers. Mr. Hayford, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Good morning. Up for election this morning would be the chairman, vice chairman, and second vice chairman position. I will take over for the election of the chairman, and I will open it up for any nominations with a reminder that Mr. Priestley has served 1 year.
And he can serve 2.
He
He can serve 2, right?
can serve 2, he served 1, so he is eligible. So I would open it up for any nominations.
Nominate John Priestman for a second term.
Second.
Any discussion, any other nominations?
Can we went through that, and is he a voting member today?
No, for the city it would still be Steve and Tom.
Okay, so I need to make the motion to make sure we don't get into that again?
I would defer.
You made the motion.
No, I didn't. I was getting ready to when
Okay.
he did.
Really, I think you're out of order, Jeff.
I'm always out of order.
I know you're out of order. I don't like telling you that.
All right.
I make a motion that we nominate John Priestman for a second term.
Second.
Okay. Now we're legal?
You're legal.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Jeff.
One alternate, okay. Catching up with myself.
There is a nomination. Any others? Hearing none, all in favor of John Priestley serving as second year chairman, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Priestley, welcome to your second term. I'll turn the gavel over to you.
Well, thank you for the confidence, and I appreciate that from the fellow board members and women. All right, we're going to have election now for our vice chair, and I'll open nominations for vice chair. I can nominate too, can't I, since we're a 5-person board? I'd like to nominate Michael Myers.
Second.
Get him involved.
Okay.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? Being none, I'll close the nominations for vice chair. Congratulations, Mr. Myers. Next office for election will be second vice chair. I'll open nominations for second vice chair.
Steve Nelson. I nominate Steve Nelson.
Nomination for Mr. Nelson.
Need a second.
Second.
Seconds all over the panel. We'll pick Melanie. Any other nominations for second vice chair? Nominations for second vice chair. Being none, I'll close nominations for second vice chair. Congratulations, Steve. Another one all by acclamation. No secret ballots today. All right, great. Moving down. We got a big day today. Agenda item number 4, employee recognition. Can I get Vincent Tyner and Kenny Soros here? Come on down.
I would just like to be a normal voting.
Oh, he's going to do that out of order. Okay.
Vince is being recognized for 10 years of service as an employee of the Okeechobee Utility Authority. First, we would like to give you this
I just got this.
Years of service, employees like you that make this world go around, and we have to be here for a long, long time.
Material cost.
That's right, we ready.
You know, running 144 trucks up there was costing me $14,000-$15,000 a day just in parts.
And he also is a recognition of
Just
10
in
years of
just in
service
parts
as an
alone.
employee in the Okeechobee Utility
Tires
Authority.
were 92 to $125,000 a month. Hey, when I got there, they were $360,000.
We appreciate your service.
So it's amazing how much everything's costing.
Very good.
I'm going to revert back to agenda item number 3, the meeting minutes from February 13th, 2018. Any errors or omissions?
Motion to accept the minutes of our last meeting of February 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. Clay. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 5, our consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as written.
Motion by Mr. Clay to accept.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. All right, down to item number 11. Agenda item number 11 is the annual maintenance contract on the OUA elevated water storage tanks.
This is really being presented to the board with the copies of the signed contracts for both the elevated water storage tank in Buckhead Ridge as well as Treasure Island. We did end up making a few housekeeping changes to the original contract that the board looked at last month. We're actually presenting these as signed contracts and requesting the board to review and ratify the attached executed contract with American Tank Maintenance.
These are the same proposals that were presented to us a month or two ago. Nothing's changed, just executed.
Some minor housekeeping changes, such as like they were supposed to give us the written, signed, and sealed reports that we need for DEP. It was just some minor deals. The time limits, the dollars did not change.
And I'll ask again, I'm sure I asked last time, the other contractor that we were utilizing were cut clear from them.
So that contract has been terminated, if you will. We sent in the written notice back at the beginning of December, I believe, and we did not exercise a new contract with them.
Very good.
John, what's the life expectancy of these tanks going forward? I know this is a 10-year deal here.
Provided that the maintenance is kept up and nothing extraordinary happens to the tanks or the facilities, they could go on for a very long length of time. What I can tell you is the Treasure Island Tower, we haven't actually done the hydraulic study, but the necessity for that tank is not as imperative as it was in the past. That deals with when we built the new surface water treatment plant, the high service pumps had physical set points on and off, part. They were either on or off. When we built the new plant, we added what they call VFDs, variable frequency drives, and the pumps can now slowly ramp up and ramp down. So the benefit of the tower, which was floating on the system, keeping pressures up, is really not much of a necessity anymore because we can slowly ramp the pumps up and down to keep it at a constant pressure. So the need for the Treasure Island Tower does provide us a small amount of storage, 75,000 gallons, but the added benefit, of floating on the system, keeping system pressures up, just really isn't necessary anymore for treasure island. Buckhead Ridge is still a little bit different because it's so many miles away on the terminal end of a water main. It serves its purpose, that if there is a fire flow or a big demand in Buckhead, that tower can provide that.
Can handle it.
Quicker than it would take for us to ramp up pumps to get there.
Now, putting in the new storage tanks that we're going to be putting in it there on the lake, will that suffice to eliminate this tank in Treasure Island?
But
When
the
we
storage
reach-
capacity will be there. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
okay, all right.
So, I mean, it really comes down to the cost to demo the
Tank.
or the social aspects of eliminating the tank more so than the physical need. And to confirm that, we would have to do a hydraulic study just to confirm that the tank is not necessarily needed. But in the coming budget year, we do have a water master plan scheduled for the year, and as a part of that water master plan will be a hydraulic study, and that would confirm, at least theoretically, whether or not that tank is needed.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John, this motion, or this request, if I read it correctly, is for ratification of the contract and approval of the invoice for 8250.
It is the two steps, the 84,
We separate those.
8250 is, we can do them as separate motions if you want.
Mr. Conley, do.
Could I suggest to you a slight change on that where you approve the modified agreements and ratify their execution? Then we'll do the second part on the payment.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion then to approve the modified agreement first.
I make a
And-
mo-
And
And
ratify
ratify.
their
Yeah, the same
execution.
one? We can do that
And,
one?
yeah, you can put those
And
together.
and ratify the agreement.
So said.
Second.
So said and second by Mr. Clay, Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries on that. Now we'll approve the invoice of, or not approve the invoice of 848250.
Motion to approve the invoice of $8,482.50.
Motion by Mr. Nelson.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Opposed? Motion approved. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, the Cemetery Road wastewater treatment facility proposed planting layout.
Chairman, board members, what you have here is some wonderful black and white photos of the Cemetery Road facility where we have three structures that we use for drying of the residuals. They're basically akin to greenhouses. During Hurricane Irma, we had a number of panels blow out of the facility, either through the roofs or the walls. This is the second time that we've had to repair some of these panels. That is ongoing with our insurance and FEMA right now to look at those repairs to that facility. As a portion of the facility, though, what we would like to look at is the ability to do one of two things. One of them is during the repairs to the panels, we're going to add some strengthening members in the roof trusses to hopefully make the panels a little more rigid so that they can stay in place during another windstorm. The other thing that has been talked about is to add some kind of vegetative buffer around these facilities to help act as a windbreak to minimize or at least cut down on the amount of wind, straight line winds, if you will, that can get to these panels and be cause for damage. So we will progress with that under a program under FEMA that modifies, they call it the Hazard Grant Mitigation Program, where they will look at repairs made to facilities to strengthen them so that we're not in this position in the future. So to that end, we did a proposed layout of some trees some taller trees, some lower trees to add around there to keep the windbreak for the understory. And we reached out to at least one local landscaping firm and another one out of Arcadia that has planted at the facility before. And you can see those quotes attached. And staff would certainly recommend that the board consider engaging a landscaper to plant these trees. As you can see in the photos, it's wide open pasture land surrounding this facility on at least 2 to 3 sides, with the treatment plant providing some buffer on the other side.
Quite a difference in the proposals, isn't it?
The Sandhill Group, like I said, they have planted some trees out there before. For those of you that were on the board, a number of years ago, the state gave an easement to Glades Electric to put a power line down the road, and they went in and trimmed a bunch of bushes and trees that got some adjoining landowners upset, so Glades Electric was nice enough to offer up some money for replanting of some vegetation, of which Sandhill was the chosen contractor at that time. Sandhill also planted some oak trees near the entrance of the facility that you can see when you turn into the driveway.
Okay, so we have a proposal from Sandhill for $20,571 and a proposal from SSD for $30,360. And it looks like SSD is just looking at some oaks and wax myrtle, and the other company, Sandhill, is quite diverse with what they're doing. They've got a lot of different styles of trees: elm, maple, oak, cedar.
Well, and it's a laurel oak too. It's not a water oak, and you don't know on the SSDs if they're water oak or laurel. You definitely want laurel.
Sure.
I wondered about the American elms. Is there any discussion about Dutch elm disease?
Again, the issue there, they said that they can. Any elm tree is susceptible, and they've been assured that their stock is disease-free at this point, but we don't know what that's going to be down the road. So they're going to have a mixture between the oak and the elm and the cedar, the red maple, that it's not all going to be predominantly, like say, elm trees. And the benefit of the elms, they do grow fairly tall. They have a very good root structure. What we'd have to worry about, what we certainly were concerned about, was that the foliage would be there to provide that windbreak, as opposed to just a fast-growing tree like, say, a eucalyptus that has no foliage and it blows off pretty easy, the leaves.
John, is there any kind of a guarantee on this, like most construction, that if they die within a year, they're going to make it right?
There is a guarantee, but I can't tell you exactly whether it's 1 full year. I don't know the answer, how long it is.
Any further discussions for?
Is there a maintenance agreement with them to?
No, sir. The only agreement, they would do the initial watering. At the end of the house, we have a 4-inch reclaimed water line that we were going to extend to provide the long-term irrigation until the roots set, so that we could provide relatively easy the irrigation, say, for the first year, until the roots get established. But out there, the good part about it is where we're planting it, it was actually built up a little bit when we built the plant, because the surrounding area is pretty wet,
right.
lucky.
So they're going to maintain them for 30 days probably?
Yes, sir.
Get a root set, and then they're out of here. And then it's up to us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The trees are far enough back that they won't affect the evaporation. They're not going to shade the greenhouses.
We have set them far enough to the south. There is a plan for a 4th structure, so we have moved far enough south to still allow that if during the future that they need to build another greenhouse out there.
And they're far enough away that if we do get a storm, it takes them down, they're not going to land on anything?
Well, they won't land on anything, whether or not a branch blows off or
right.
goes somewhere, because they have to be far enough away, as Harry was asking, that they don't shade the structure and then eliminate the reasons why
Right.
we have those structures to begin with. So they're far enough away that the shade won't be a factor, which generally mean they won't blow over into the structure, but that doesn't mean a branch can't blow off and drift over to it. And
Now,
again, this is just an attempt to provide some means of a windbreak, rather than just allowing that straight line wind to blow across the pasture into the structure.
Now, in this quote, it says that subject to one mobilization, so the weather is not conducive for planting, they have to come back, they're going to charge us additional money. And in addition to that, price is based on currently available, price and availability, subject to change. Well, if they accept the quote with a bid of $20,571, and the plants go up, they're going to charge us more money.
No, sir. At the time of the quote, they didn't want us sitting around waiting for the quote for 6 months and then coming back and saying, we're ready to go forward with it.
This stuff's like cattle, it changes weekly.
Sir.
The plants are like cattle, they change weekly.
They can change on the availability. If there's another big contract that comes in and takes, they gotta go to another vendor. So, they just were letting us know that these prices are not locked in forever, and know that they are subject to change.
So John, does staff recommend this? This is what you guys want to do for sure?
My position is we ought to try to do something, and since we are strengthening the roof members as one option to try to keep these big panels from wobbling and blowing loose, we should do something to try to to minimize the winds. The problem that we run into is these are not very tall trees. They're 10, 12 feet, 15 feet. They will not be instantaneous wind breaks. They will have to have time to grow into it. If we had unlimited resources, we could spend thousands of dollars per tree and get 20-foot trees in, or 30-foot, which would necessitate some other strengthening, staking, but they would be taller and provide a more quicker windbreak. So we have to understand that we're planting these trees, they're only going to be 10 to 12, 14 feet high. To get to this 50-foot height, that's going to be years down the road. It's not a windbreak today.
John, you had mentioned we have a 4-inch well for irrigation there. Not going to come back in a couple of months wanting us to approve a contractor to come in and water these trees. We're going to do this ourselves in-house.
There is a 4-inch water line at the south end of this structure that we would extend to put impulse sprinklers. There's some means for us to be able to water these trees in the short term until the root system gets
We'll
established.
do this in-house. We're going to do this in-house.
In-house, yes, sir.
And we've got, 30 years of life left on that plant?
Oh, yes, sir.
But we got hardwood.
Just about the time I retire, so.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're here in 30 years, I'll stick
Or
around.
terminated by the board.
We know how that works.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? What's the board's pleasure?
You know, I see this stuff down south a lot. They build walls out of, I don't know what tree it is, down towards Miami, around their golf courses, around their sewage treatment facilities, but I don't know what that tree is. It gets up about 30 feet, and they plant them close enough, it looks like they hedge them, and it makes a wall. I know what you're trying to do, but I don't know if these are the trees we want to do it with. The aesthetics is going to be nice to put all this stuff together. But again, I don't know. I know what they have, again, I don't know what those trees are down there, but if you run down the turnpike.
You're talking about the evergreen?
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like It's like a cedar tree. I can't remember exactly what it's called.
Fast growing,
And it only grows about 30.
yeah, but I mean, they'll grow, I mean, they'll do like that. Their limbs will intertwine and it's like a solid wall.
Well, clearly the intent for what we want is to have something that will withstand somewhat of a wind damage. And so when we were approached to the landscapers, that's the intent. Gave them some suggestions, but I said, you're the tree guys, this is what we want to do. We need some that are very tall, some that are going to be more
Intermediate.
medium height to provide that understory windbreak that's on the outside edge. And that's where they came up with these variations in trees. The only thing I did certainly like about the Sand Hill was that there was a variety of trees, not just one style only.
One of my concerns would be maintenance, and what you just mentioned, I bet they have grounds crews that are out there every day cutting those things back to make that wall. We want to plant some trees and walk away from them, and in 30 years.
They don't need that kind of maintenance.
Right.
They don't.
They don't?
The ones down there.
No.
No?
No, they grow in a cone shape. They grow looks like a Christmas tree. But if you plant them close enough, like he's talking about, I think it's 20 or 30 feet apart, they'll grow together and the tops will be loose, but they're a very flexible tree.
And they set them up for windbreaks and everything down there. But anyway, if this is what the guy recommends for our soil, our area, and that's what you've asking, is what's the best for us, right?
Well, they all came out and looked at the soil because they were concerned about
the soil.
wet or dry, and they, both companies looked at the facility, and it's their recommendation. They're in that business.
Well, we planted a bunch of eucalyptus on the ranch just to get quick shade, and that little blow we had the other day took about a third of them out.
That's what they look like.
They have no root system.
Yeah.
Well, they shed a lot of leaves, their branches come off,
Lots of them.
That's what we're talking about.
Thank you. I didn't really want to drive to Miami.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking, yeah.
You want to show Steve?
Oh, okay. And there's Jeff way down there.
That's all good. I'll see it.
Okay. Further discussion? Come on, Mr. Clay. Mr. Nelson.
But we need to do something. I agree. Why don't we reach out and check on what's down south?
Sure.
What is that? What are they called? The evergreens?
Yeah, they're called green giants. There's a couple of different varieties, but the green giants I've used in the past.
Okay. And there's a place, I believe, in Belglade or Pahokee that grows them. I think John, I'll try to get a number.
That, everybody on board with that?
If that's,
God, we'll send it back to you for further information.
Done. We'll look it up.
now this price will probably go up in the next month.
Well, again, that may or may not. Again, what we're up, certainly, what we ultimately will end up doing if we move forward with this program is to be with FEMA and pursue the hazard grant mitigation. And I don't know what kind of time frame we're under in that one, but I will pursue it and we'll see what happens.
Let me see if you can get it back to us next month where we can not bypass that FEMA.
John, and the aesthetics of this Sand Hill group is would be awesome. But for versatility, I think what they do down there might be better. They use it for crops. They use it for everything down there. Golf courses, all around, like Naples, the sewage treatment plants, they plant them right on the chain link fences around. So.
We'll check as long as they meet the bill of being a windbreak.
Yeah.
Aesthetics is a secondary issue, and that makes it nice. But so long as they can be a windbreak, and that's
Well, they are that. You can't throw a rock through them.
Okay.
Or a golf ball.
Or a golf ball.
All right, we'll put this on hold for further information. Agenda item number 13, the Training Incentive Program reimbursement. Mr. Capel.
Again, this is an offshoot of through our insurance a joining of the insurance industry along with our supervisors, in that we do have a fairly active training program within the OUA. It is different by departments. By that I mean the safety training program, say, for the administration folks, will not be the same thing as with the treatment plants or maintenance. We just have different safety concerns, priorities, if you will. So in conjunction with the insurance industry, we do different trainings, whether that's confined space, electrical, trip and fall, take your choice, CPR, first aid. We have different training classes from the realm of a tailgate meeting, a 5-minute, 10-minute type of deal to talk to them about what's going on, what they need to be aware of, forms to fill out, that type of deal, to actually bringing in trainers who hold full-blown, half-day, full-day classes on different events as warranted. Well, through that process, obviously, we can give them the training. We can provide the service, whether, again, it's a webinar or seminar, on-hand paperwork. To that end, it's up to the supervisors and ultimately to the employees to provide that safety, because if you provide the education to them, implementation is a big issue. To that end, the insurance company has recognized our safety program, our low, if you will, claims, and at the end of the year, they did supply back a reimbursement of $5,000 to the OUA based upon the safety program and the claims. The safety committee, which we have, comprised of several members throughout the OUA, had made a recommendation that the employees, due to their diligence and practices, maybe the OUA could consider providing a gift card to the employees in recognition of their job, safety record, whatever you want to call it. And so that's why I would bring it back to the board for the board's consideration as to whether or not the refund, if you will, the reimbursement of $5,000 could go towards gift cards to be applied or given out to the employees for recognition of their safety record. And that's why it's brought to the board this morning.
Well, where I come from, we reward people for quarterly. It's about $250 to $300 quarterly. No accidents, no claims, no tickets, no nothing. You get the full deal. So this is just the same thing. They've saved us $5,000. We got a reimbursement. So it's an incentive for them to keep that going. And that's what we always did our safety program on. Cindy was part of it. And it works. It really works because they really think about it. That they get to where they're counting on that piece of money coming to them. It's like part of their salaries. And so I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's money we didn't have. It's money we got reimbursed because they were doing their job safely. So a $100 gift card for 52 employees.
Well, it's certainly one other way to look at it along those same lines. A loss is going to cost us a lot more.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It takes one loss and $5,000 is gone.
An accident on the road, fender bender of some sort. I mean, the bottom line is, I think it's my own personal opinion. I think it is.
It's cheap insurance.
A money well spent.
Yes.
Any other motions?
I agree.
Yep, I agree.
I make a motion that we do the $100 gift cards for all 52 employees as requested by the safety committee.
Motion by Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. Is this something that is done quarterly or annually?
Yeah, well, they give us
This was an
checks
annual.
quarterly, but we do the sum total at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
We've already gotten one for the first quarter, but it's like $1,200 and something. So we just do it at the end of the year and recognize the, this deal at the end of the year, the sum total.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 14, which is Treasure Island Vacuum Collection System SRF application.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is just a, an update, if you will, of where we're at with the application process towards Treasure Island. And again, I stress that it's the application process. Nothing is cast in stone as far as actual hard and fast numbers for the loan grant program, primarily because we don't know who or how additional monies may be coming into the OUA. As you're well aware, they're just wrapping up the budget proposals from the Senate and the House, yet to be signed, so nothing is definitive yet from Tallahassee. But this is mainly a recap of the Treasure Island system, that if it were to progress, where we would be at for the total amount of expense planned, if you will, I suppose, for the site. You can see that it's roughly $24 million as it stands right now is the estimated construction cost. The on-site improvements by the connections ranging from health department permitting to septic tank abandonment, as well as the fees owed to the OUA for the capital connection charges, totals roughly $2,400 per connection. Last month at the board meeting, you heard from our rate consultant that was projecting various rates for changes coming for the year, whether we do nothing, and by nothing meaning adding Treasure Island or adding Treasure Island with various cost share between state, federal, and other local entities in dispersing the total $24 million expenditure. So the rate change, I don't have the percentages here, I didn't bring it, but the total for the 5-year planning horizon range from 7.7% for the water side up to 9.9% on the wastewater side. There is a little chart in there based upon those billing changes, approximately at 4,000 gallon usage, what the monthly changes would be to that standard typical wastewater bill. So at this point, again, we have done the capital financing plan. We have filled out the request for inclusion, and I would like to go ahead and be able to submit that to the state just to start the physical SRF application process with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Again, there will be plenty of time later once we know if our funding request at the state level, there's several of them pending either through an appropriation or a DEO grant. There are other applications pending with other agencies, cost sharing. Until some of those come to either yes or no, we really don't know what the offsets are going to be.
Now, any idea what the turnaround time for this is from application to finding out if we are going to receive funding?
It should take, the request for inclusion and going through that step probably is 6 weeks or so for them to review the capital financing plan, and then we will have several steps after that as far as we have the ecological report done, we have the financing plan, so you can see a couple of those things are already on this flow chart that once we get it to them, the agency notifications, because it has to go to a clearinghouse. I think there's last total like 20 some odd agencies that look at these different reports to know if there are impacts or no impacts.
So it would fall hand in hand in what we find out from Tallahassee. It would be in process at the same time. We wouldn't be waiting on one for another. It'd all be coming together.
I would hope that at least on the state budget, we'll know that outcome within 2 weeks. Because as I understand it, again, I'm here not in Tallahassee, but I believe the budget was passed by the House and Senate, which means it has to go onto the governor's desk, and there is a time limit for the governor to either accept it or veto it, and where we go from there.
This is a very integral part, again, with moving forward with the Treasure Island project. We will need the SRF funding also.
Well, yeah, there are several things in the works. Again, either contributions in aid, for other aspects, or legislative changes that are pending, and they haven't come together yet, so I really don't want to speculate and say, yes, we've got something in the works when I don't have that.
All right.
This basically gets down to last time. We got to see what they're going to give us before we can determine
Yes,
if
sir.
we're going to move forward.
At some point in time, there will be this much grant, this is a loan, this is the annual debt service. Do you want to go forward, do you not? And that's ultimately,
Look at it. Yeah, last time it was about 4 million.
I think last time we had about 6 million in grant funding.
Is that what it was, 6?
It was around 20, it was between the 20 and 25%.
Yeah, and we had already spent 2 million out of pocket.
Yes, sir, I still have the boxes to show you.
So you're just looking for authorization to fill out the application, to send off the
So
application?
we're ready to move forward and actually submit the application. I'll defer that as to whether you need to actually make a motion, but there are steps that we have to go through and submit this application. It wouldn't hurt to make a motion, but I leave that up to you.
What's your opinion?
Yeah, you're just authorizing staff to submit a request for inclusion for an SRF fund.
So you need a motion for that?
Yes.
All right. There you go.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. Clay. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. Thank you. Agenda item number 15, Sawgrass Estate Water Main Improvement. John, you sent us an email last night that I don't see here.
This is a moving target for sure. This has been back before the
We got an email
board
last
in the past where there was some dollars estimated for the water main installation, which included the 2-inch lines going down the road. I was asked to break out the 2-inch lines, let the developer pay for that in its entirety. We would only cost share.
There it is.
We don't have the numbers in front of us, John.
We would only cost share the amount on Northeast 48th Avenue. So what we tried to present to you is that the difference between the 6-inch water main that is required for fire protection for the development versus what the OUA would request, an 8-inch water main to serve future customers in that area. That pricing has been shared with you, that's a difference between $54,000 roughly for the 8-inch, $49,000 for the 6-inch, and the 2-inch is roughly $42,000. Broken into the developer's 50-50 share on the 6-inch
So that's the main one going in.
versus the 2-inch. You can see the developer's expenses are $66,000 versus $30,000 for the OUA expenses on the 8-inch water main. What we're really asking for this morning is an understanding from the board as to which way we need to go with the negotiations with the developer. Certainly one of them is that they pay their fair share, we pay ours, and we go on down the road, versus any number of cost sharing where they actually enter in a developer agreement. We effectively become a bank, and they do time payments over the next 2 or 3 years, with those payments being due as a recommendation by us. If we elect to go this route, recommendation by staff that those be added to their, as a non-ad valorem tax on their tax bill to guarantee payment. But what we really want to know is, from the board's perspective, if there was any insight as to which way we need to move forward in negotiating with the developer all of these payment methods.
John, I'm partial to the, they pay theirs, we pay our aspect of it. We're not a bank. We're not into developer agreements on something like this. They're going to be selling property and recovering expenses, which, could get stretched out over long periods of time. So I'm not in favor of the developer agreement in this case. We haven't done it in the past. I don't think it's time we start doing that. They pay their part, we pay our part, and well, that's just my thoughts on it.
And clearly, that's certainly out there. The only benefit that the OUA would get to a certain extent is that we are going to have a water main into a new area for future extension. But there is just that issue. Fool me once, on certain developer actions that sometimes happen, sometimes they don't. So it's just, that's why we're asking for, from Tom and I talking about it, that we really needed to get some direction from the board, what the pleasure of the board is, because this policy is a little bit different than in the past.
I wasn't on the board when you done all the developer agreements.
The developer agreements in that instance were primarily that we would allocate connection to the developers, and they had to pay those over time, like 5 years.
So you did finance them?
Only to the extent of the connection charges. We didn't actually put pipe to the ground.
Right, not going in and developing.
This
You
is
just
a
run
little-
it down the road to them and made it available.
This is a little different in that we're actually putting pipe in the ground. He's not reserving connections. They would pay for that as they sold lots and built houses. So this, where I say this is a little different, we're actually putting pipe in the ground. We will own it. We will have future connections, piping customers out there, but we are in essence financing a part of the project.
So he didn't buy some hookups years ago?
He did not, no, sir.
Okay, he negotiated them, he never bought them.
No, those developer agreements were signed in 2006.
Okay.
10 years ago. We haven't done one since, to my knowledge.
No, I just thought there was, on this particular piece of property, I thought there was some already done.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
This is brand new.
Mr. Tobin?
Well, the big difference was this. These developers back in '05 wanted capacity at the sewage treatment
Right.
plant. There wasn't any. The only way we would participate with them on a deal like this was if they would buy ERCs.
Yeah.
And that's what they were actually doing, buying ERCs, which is how we wound up with these properties, LVA and Coker
Right.
and whatnot. This is different. We've got the capacity. We're only talking about water here. So we've got the water capacity there. There's no big crunch about, you're going to give out of ERCs on your water. This is talking about infrastructure. The others did not relate to infrastructure at all. I mean, I hope I make sense what I'm saying.
Right, so basically what we would have, our part of the infrastructure is going down 48th Street.
48th Avenue, yes, sir.
48th Avenue, yes.
Yes, sir.
That's our part, and then from then on, it's them, into their, from 48th in, they'll do their own.
They're doing all the land development cost as far as the roadway and the lot clearing. If we were to lay the water main down 48th Avenue, we in fact they had asked us to lay the 2-inch water main to go down those individual roads, but that would be totally at their expense, not ours.
Right.
We're only sharing 50% cost on what's on 48th Avenue.
Well, bottom line, you're talking about $97,000 cost here. The proposal's OUA to pay $30,000 of that, and they to pay the $67,000, but we finance the $67,000. There's only one way that you'd be secure if you did something like that, and that would be the special assessment.
On the property.
Yes. That could mess up financing. I mean, I don't know what the financer would think about that, because special assessments would take priority over any mortgage on the property.
Right.
We've had that battle before. So, I mean, bottom line, do you want to be a bank?
John, once you cross the canal out there by South Florida Water Management, do we have any water down those streets, or is it all on well?
Only to the water management district offices.
And then everything else is well back there.
And when we did, when they were doing the 70 widening, we provided a new line under there at 48th Avenue because at some point in time, we knew we would be providing service to that area.
Yeah, I remember
So
that.
it was easier to go ahead and put it in prior to construction. It's there, there's a fire hydrant. We're ready to serve the area. This is an extension down 48th Avenue. Yes, it is to help the developer on one side put in 29 lots, but there could be other folks that are already established out there that may elect to join the city.
Well, that was my deal, coming back towards water management at the, there's got to be, there's quite a few homes in there. And I'm looking at the future. I know you guys say we're not a bank, but I'm just trying to see if there's a bigger picture.
Well, the other side of the coin is it's always easier to put the water main in as it's being developed than to go back in later and tear up driveways and culverts to put it in. So this is an opportunity for a developer that's putting in 29 lots to get in and have hopefully 29 customers within the next 2 or 3 years, 4 years, if that absorption rate holds up.
So if we do it just goes again, like we've done before, if we did the financing, you would attach it to the property. All 29
You would
lots.
not do it in the normal form of taking a mortgage.
Right,
You'd be doing it as special assessment.
special
And
assessment.
it would have the same kind of developer agreement that would underlie that.
Yeah.
And there could be a provision to accelerate the payments, if let's say there's 30 lots, at the end of selling 10 lots, the note becomes due, because then they have some resources coming in, and we don't have to wait for the extra year.
Yeah, you don't want all your money sitting on that last lot.
That is correct. I mean, there's provisions here, but we just, at this point, I wanted to bring it to the board to get some kind of direction, so we knew how we could formulate an agreement with the developer if there is a desire.
So he doesn't have any money up front? He was wanting us to do the whole 97?
No. I think there's a reasonable deal that he might say pay 25%. Down with 25% per year in January. So 3 years it would be paid off.
I don't think that we really need to get into financing infrastructure for developers. I mean, it is setting a precedent that could turn into big money later on.
I'm looking at growth, and it's $100,000.
Is there any,
And it's not like we're looking at a $20 million deal over here that we've been messing with for 10 years. And we've got $2 million thrown down that hole. And this is $100,000 to get 29 homes, and we can recoup it. Again, we spent, $75,000 on an easement there from Bill Berman?
We spent some money, I don't remember.
Yeah, $75,000 for a little piece on his property that we might not ever use. I think we need to look at this a little harder. I mean, it's not like people are asking us to borrow $20 million here. It's $100,000, and he's got $25,000 up front, and we can assess his properties and make him pay it in 3 years or 4 years, whatever that period is. By the second phase, I don't see an issue with it, personally. I mean, we scream about growth, and here's a way to do 30 homes. And we've been going into Basswood and spending money to do the same thing. So I don't see much difference in it myself.
Well, in Basswood, the homes are there. We're going to start recouping immediately. We're just developing lots here. We're running pipe down pasture. And we're doing it for somebody else. That's the difference.
You're doing it for somebody else up there in Basswood.
No, but we're recouping immediately. We're
Yeah,
looking
you've got a
home.
3-year plan.
Yeah,
That's
but-
what they're putting in front of you.
But again, we're
But we
setting,
can
we're
stand
setting a
here and-
precedence to pay for developers'
Yeah.
infrastructure. And I
Well-
don't think that that's something we need to get into.
Well, we haven't set much of a precedence because we've had zero growth in all these years. So we either need to pull our heads out of the sand and start looking in different directions, or keep our heads in the sand and don't do nothing.
I think, the developer needs to look at other options. I mean, that just because we're not agreeing to finance doesn't mean the project's not going to go forward.
You don't know that.
No, we don't know that.
No, so-
But I don't know that we need to commit to this option until we do know that.
I have a difference of opinion, so.
Mike, you have any opinion on this?
Are we guaranteed that these 29 lots will hook up?
The only guarantee that we would have if we do a developer agreement is that he would make the payments every 3 years or whatever it is. When the lots are developed, they will connect to the water system. If that's the question, they
Yeah.
will put in wells.
So we will gain 29 customers.
They wouldn't have to connect with it. They're half-acre lots.
At some point.
They can be developed well and septic.
your cost.
I agree. I think we need, that's the whole point, to have a business is to grow it. I would like to see us, I like the idea.
I think we at least need to negotiate and look at all options and look at what you're saying, if there is another option, but if there's not another option, let's don't close this door.
So if I get the consensus that you're not necessarily unopposed to the path we're doing.
No, I'm not.
Come back with some kind of agreement next month, and then you can decide then whether we go.
Yeah, and do what Harry's asking, make them show you that they have looked at the other aspects.
Okay.
Right?
We not almost have to have an independent auditor to, dive into their finances to determine that. We can ask them, but if I was the developer, and I would say, no, this is it.
Ms. Anderson, do you have an opinion on this?
I hate to think about getting into the developer agreements again, but I agree with Tom and Mike that we need to go forward with something that's going to be palatable to us as well as the developer. So maybe some more discussion with the developer as to other possibilities or softening these possibilities a little bit to make it more palatable to us.
Okay.
One question that comment that Tom brought up about if we use the special assessment, and they were going to finance, and that's something we don't know, would it mess up their finances?
Yeah.
It might. But that's the only, but that's the only thing that, in this scenario, that I would agree with, is that if we allowed them to pay over a 2 or 3 year period, that it be under special assessment.
Tom can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe what we have done in the past when financing was involved, I believe we got the lending institution to sign on to the agreement. Haven't we done that in the past?
It will be a joiner, yes.
So there would be a joiner so that everybody would be aware of who's agreeing to what and at what type of repayment schedule. So we would actually include the lending agency in any kind of agreement.
Okay, thank you.
That's the only way I would change my opinion, because I really am stuck on this. I don't want to set a precedence for something down the road that could come back and become
We'll
overwhelming.
work on something and bring it
Mr.
back.
Nelson?
I agree with everybody here. Owning a retail business in this community, we're hurting in town. We have to look at different options. We have to make a compromise between all of what we're saying right now. Because if we don't grow this community, folks, this town is going to die. It's not like anything else that's on the coast, etc. We have to look at different opportunities. Sometimes we have to bite the bullet and do a little financing. Let's be honest. Why would somebody want to come to Okeechobee? If it's a business, permitting is going to have to change a little bit, an olive branch here and there. So I think that we need to look at all the options that are out there, see what is viable to work for everybody, concerned, and make a compromise between all of it. We've got to bring more homes in. We've got to bring businesses in. And it's not going to be an easy decision, but I think we have to change the way that we're looking at things at this juncture. That's my own opinion.
Mr. Fadden?
I think anytime we have a chance to lay new pipe in Okeechobee County, we should find reasons, not to do it. Let's go forward, unless there's a big reason not to do it.
Figured out.
We're right on the money about it as far as trying to grow the county, trying to grow people. You hear people all the time, like this young man over here talking about it's stale right now, things aren't happening. Who else is going to make things happen if it's not the water company? They all got to come through us.
We have capacity.
Yes.
Capacity is here. I mean, right around town, look at all the empty stores that we have. Look at all the empty lots. If we've got the capability of going out there and laying the pipe, then we can say, okay, developers, everything is here. Come on into our community.
Unless there's a glaring reason why we shouldn't. And Mr. Maldonado brings up a good point. We shouldn't get, but everybody has an opinion. But unless there's a glaring reason why we shouldn't, we figure out a reason why we should. And certainly, growth is the big flag right now. And we're talking about 30 houses, and these are like pretty big lots. They're going to be nice enough houses.
Yeah.
That's certainly growing a company, growing the business, bringing people in that's going to have to buy drugs and everything else we have in town.
Well, that's so bad.
So they'll use our services.
Sure. And they might even need massages, who knows?
Yeah. Well, Brandon, quick question. How many developers are starting to break ground in Okeechobee County right now that you know of?
Do you have a project that's less than 30 units? Zero.
That's what I thought.
Well,
And why is that? Why is that? Why is
Don't
that?
have jobs for them out here to move here.
We got to have something to offer, guys. So
That's incorrect.
I can't find one. I'm looking for over a year.
You can go to Walpole right now. If you can turn a wrench, you can go to work tomorrow. And you can go to Gilbert Chevrolet anywhere if you're a tech and do anything.
If I understand correctly, then what we're going to do is send you back to negotiate with the developer and see if we can look at another angle on this.
yes, sir.
Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
As far as development, there is a little bit going on. The one that I am aware of is a developer agreement that we signed a long time ago, Towns of Okeechobee, up off of Northwest 23rd Lane. They are building some multifamily quadplexes there. That's my understanding.
Where's that at?
Turn at the drive-through on 23rd Lane, heading back towards the elementary schools.
Yeah, are those blocks inside?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Those are under construction. It's a small project, but there is some construction going on at that point.
And those roads have been in there for about 15 years.
The water and sewer has been in there for
So,
there is some movement. It's taken a long time, and that's where we would be with this. No one knows what the absorption rate's going to be on these 29 homes. Could be 3 years, could be 6 years. The only selling point as a marketing issue that I can see is with the widening of 70. It's going to make the east side a little more tangible as far as developable property. Even if the work isn't here, it still stays in Fort Pierce or on the
Yeah.
coast.
coming where I just spent 7 months at, driving for hours during the day to get to where you're going and back in Atlanta, driving to Fort Pierce and back's no big deal, I promise you. Driving to West Palm and back's no big deal.
We'll bring something back.
Thank you, John.
I've got one question for Mr. Tucker. I've known you and your dad for quite some time. What do you see that we're lacking in Okeechobee that doesn't allow contractors to come in to build more homes? Yes, please.
Good paying jobs. I mean, it's that simple. Any developer, and we deal with a lot of major home builders on the coast, and that we're working on some things now in Martin County. The home builder needs to be able to, their land basis plus their improvements, water, sewer, roads, everything needs to be about 25%. Their finished site pad used to be about 25% of the value of the finished product of the house. And so when we look at the realtor's data here, that the average home price is probably about $140,000, $150,000 for your average home. Back that out, knowing what 25% of that number needs to be as a finished lot. And Phil Bowman's in the room who does a lot of site work, and it costs you about $25,000 to $30,000 per unit to put in roads and drainage and all those things. And then you got to add the land basis on top of that. So that makes it incredibly challenging to be able to provide an affordable product here if you don't have good, high-quality paying jobs, because you need those homes to be in the 2 to 250 range to start making sense, and you can't absorb enough of that here. There's just not enough absorption.
And the
Jobs is the answer to that.
Yeah, the tech jobs. There's no tech jobs here. There's a lot of other jobs here that pay well, but there's no tech jobs, and that's what we see. And again, I just spent 7 months in Atlanta, and it's in the reverse up there.
Yeah.
You know, you got plenty of techs, and not enough. Of course, there's 140 people a day moving into Atlanta. So, but again,
We need jobs.
yeah, we need different jobs. We need some kind of technical jobs. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
All right, going to move on agenda item number 16, the Pine Ridge Park wastewater system final. We're going to put this to bed today?
Well, hopefully, sir.
Hopefully.
What you have in front of you
Reimbursed.
is their final request, pay request, project closeout. The job has been completed. We've taken beneficial use of the system and the pump station. The work was very good. We're final with most of the paperwork. There are a couple outstanding items that we have yet, we will see upon final payment. But the record drawings, manuals, everything has been provided to us until we get to this final closeout. As you can notice, that one of the steps in closing out the project was to get the county to sign off on the right-of-ways, and which they did in February 13th is when they actually gave us in writing that the punch list was completed, and they accepted the work by the contractor. Unfortunately, the February 13th date was past the final completion date by 16 days. As a reminder, the OUA board has a contract with Seminole Design for the contract time and contract pricing. I'm not really, or the engineers for the final is not the one that would make that recommendation as far as moving the final completion date. So there is liquidated damages that have been assessed at $200 a day, totaling $3,200, of which, again, the OUA board has that option to either accept or to reject the liquidated damages. This payment has been processed as if the $3,200 was going to be assessed. So at the end of the project, with the change order, which is used to adjust the contract time and contract price, the amount due in the final payment to Seminole Design Build is $57,213.74. Seminole Design Build is here today. If they wish to speak, or if you have questions of them, they're here to answer those.
So we owe them $57,213.74.
Correct.
Yes, sir. If the liquidated damages are assessed, you have in your board package the engineer record, Holtz Consulting Engineers, giving you a recap of where we're at and why we're there. You see the change order number 1, and then the final pay request that's being made. So the for the board is to close out the project, approve the change order, and approve the final pay request.
What's staff's recommendations here, John?
Staff's recommendation is to approve it as presented, the change order and pay application.
Mr. Nunez, would you like to speak?
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I have to admit, this is the first for me, so it's, But we stand behind what we do, and when it's good, and then when things don't quite go your way. Like you said, job was done right, job was done good, but here to close out paperwork, we lost some time, and we're not sitting here pointing no fingers at nobody. It is what it is. We accept our responsibility. Of course, I'd love for it to go away, but it is what it is. That being said, I appreciate the work. We're local, and we hope to continue working here. And whatever y'all decide, it's whatever y'all guys decide.
Well, that was the whole goal, is to get local people doing local work.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. And, I apologize that, that I had this little blemish towards the end, but like I said, everything's good and functioning, and we did a good job. B&B, my partner over here, we did outstanding work, no problems, no issues. It's just other than this right here. So.
And certainly I would reiterate that they did fine work, good work. The liquidated damages is not something that I can remove. It's per the contract, and it's there, but it does not have to necessarily be enforced. It's up to the board to decide. I had to process the paperwork per the contract. It's there.
And
16 days at 200, so it's $3,200 liquidated damage?
Yes, sir.
Anybody make a motion to pay this man?
I make a motion that we proceed to make a payment, approval of the change order, and final application for payment number 8 in exchange for 2 final releases.
Is that to assess the liquidated damages or to relieve them from that?
no, I think we need to do that first, don't
We need
we?
to do that first, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the application for payment number 8.
Yeah, number 8, though, is
That's
less.
with the liquidated
Yeah.
damages.
So,
Do we
John-
want to release the liquidated damages, or do we want to execute the agreement as written?
John, was there anything other than this is what was in the contract? Was there anything that cost us any money? Was there?
The original contract has already assessed some has given them some time limit for the Hurricane Irma and
Right.
tropical storms. The OUA is, the only thing that was pending on us is that we had to get away from the treatment plant by the end of the year because our operating permit was expiring. We did
Right.
not renew it. We came that close, but we were able to make that happen.
So we suffered no damages.
We suffered no damages to this $3,200. This is purely a
Contractual deal.
issue. Yes,
I make a motion that we do away with the $3,200 and pay him his full amount.
Second.
You second, Mike? Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
I appreciate
Now we
it.
need
Thank
to
you.
execute.
Now we gotta pay you.
This was just only assessment of liquidated damages.
Let's let Tom give us an opinion here on how to do this.
No, if you're waiving that, what did you do on the prior motion?
The prior motion is we did away with the liquidated damages. Not that one?
Steve's motion.
Oh, we never got a second on it.
You never got, okay, it died for lack of a second. Okay, okay. So you're waiving liquidated damages?
Yes, sir.
So now you need you need to approve final payment of X dollars,
Of $57,213.74 plus
3,200.
plus the 3,200.
Actually, if I may, we,
64,1374.
there are two things that have to
Where's it
happen.
at?
One is the change order, which sets
Say it
the
off
final
again.
pay request.
Right there, 60. Okay. I make a motion that we pay a final payment of $60,413.74 with the change order. Does that make sense?
In exchange for the 2 releases,
In exchange for the 2 releases.
or conditioned on getting the 2 releases. Conditioned on getting the 2.
Conditioned on getting the 2 releases.
Okay, motion by Mr. Clay for $60,413.74 conditioned on the 2 releases.
And I don't think you need to worry about the change order. You're simply waiving the
Just pay the
liquidated damages.
Yeah.
Mr. Conley, though, as a DEO, we would do the change order because we would add the 16 days into the contract for the final completion date.
I mean, if you want to do it, they've waived it. They've waived the liquidated damages.
You agree with, okay with that, all the wording?
Yeah, if he says I'm good, I'm good.
Steve is in, and motion by Mr. Clay, second by Mr. Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Agenda item number 17, Northwest Fifth Street Water Main Improvement. It's on our placement.
Northwest Fifth, that would be that one.
This is an old topic.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so just to go back, okay, fair enough.
Tommy, this is the old Kinsall Road.
Hell, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mack's place.
What's driving this is the DOT is putting in a new storm sewer collection line along Northwest 6th Street. And installing the new storm sewer along Northwest 6th Street, it's going to impact our existing water mains in a couple places. Some of those places, it's just a matter of adjusting the height of our existing water mains up or down. Not a big issue, we can deal with it. But unfortunately, at the intersection of Northwest 18th Avenue and Northwest 6th Street, there is a 4-inch cast iron water main that's going south that's directly in the line of the storm sewer, and it would be fairly costly to lower that pipe. It's just a lot of expense. Road open cutting, directional drill. So the issue is, it comes back to the issue of this 2-inch water main behind the houses, which are impacted by the loss of that 4-inch water main. So we're put together a plan to attach it to a 2-inch water main down on 5th Street, and we're back to the same deal of hopping fences, going in the backyards to read meters. I would just like board approval to be done with it, put in the 2-inch that we talked about last summer all the way along 5th Street, and remove that 2-inch from the backyards. And it will suffice to fix the DOT conflict and the backyard issue, and we'll call it done. And we won't be talking about this in 6 months.
Since I've been on the board.
Well, it's, this is one of those deals where, I won't mention the store, but where we tried to say we'll kick the can down the road, but the can comes back. So we've kicked it down the road. We're back to visiting it, albeit for a different reason, a DOT storm sewer project, but we just need to go ahead and fix it once and be done with it out of that neighborhood. To the tune of about $22,700, let's call it $23,000. Again, we would have that budgeted out of water main improvements for the year. We would just like board approval to move forward with the DEP permitting and construction of this water main on Northwest 5th Street.
I asked an old timer why they put them in the back that knew Mr. Mack, Johnny Mack's dad. They said, well, it was easier to put them down in alleyways than it was to rip up the street out front.
But there's no alley there.
Well,
I mean, but Mr. Mack, I'm sure, had a hand in some of this.
Yeah, we can go right down through here. But that's the story I was told. They just did it the cheap way. They didn't care about you crawling over no fence.
I mean, even if you look at city center where there are alleyways, there's a lot of utilities in the back, whether that's CenturyLink, FP&L, water, sewer. Now we have gas in some areas. Garbage used to be collected in the rear alley. So, I mean, in some areas where they actually designated a 15-foot alleyway, I can understand it. The only issue, like in this area, maybe somebody at some time intended to give a 15-foot easement. It just never happened.
Never happened.
This isn't the first time we've run into it. Grace Christian Church is another example, going by the old, what used to be the old Dover's house. We had sewer back there, no easement. Over behind Burger King, we run into it where it just went across the parcel, and we had to move a water main. So this has probably been up the last time we will run into this issue.
So you just need a motion, or you just need?
I would need a motion to approve the expenses of the Northwest 5th Street water main improvements, estimated to be right now at about $23,000, $22,748.
All right, I make a motion that we approve the Northwest Fifth Street water main improvements, total of $22,748.88. You need any more?
Motion by Mr. Clay to move forward with the Northwest Fifth Street water improvement, $22,748.88.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 18.
Northwest 28th Avenue.
Northwest 28th Fire Lane.
Let me give you a little bit of background as to where this one started. This started way back when in Basswood, where it came in that one customer needed water up near 36th Street. We put a 2-inch water main to service him. Months go by, skip down a few lots, somebody else wants a water main. We put in a 2-inch water main extension to service them. This happens 4 times. Now we got a long 2-inch water main, and what we do nowadays is when we get these requests, which I bring to the board, is here's the cost for a 2-inch to serve them, but we've been providing fire protection, and on our dime we put in the 6-inch, and then we extend the 2-inch. And well, here, this is one before we started that process, we end up with, 1,400 feet of 2-inch water line, no fire protection. So to go back and make this street no different than any other streets, what you have before you is a water main extension that will provide that fire service for the south end of 28th Avenue, as well as to strengthen the supply of the 2-inch, and we will call it done. Again, we have learned in the past on these extensions, we don't do that anymore.
Right.
We go ahead and put in a 6-inch, we do it once and not come back. But unfortunately, 28th Avenue was one of the earlier streets where this expansion was being considered, and we ended up with a lot of 2-inch water main and no fire protection. So it is staff's request that we move forward with the fire line installation on Northwest 28th Avenue to the tune of about $43,377, which will come out of the fire hydrant fund, which we would have to budget out of that. There is the money in the fund. It is staff's recommendation to go ahead with this 28th Avenue extension.
Yeah, now that we've changed the way we're doing things and doing things for the future use, I think it's crazy to leave this one laying back there behind us. So I make a motion that we do the Northwest 28th Avenue fire lane improvements, adding the, what is it, a 6-inch or an 8-inch? 8-inch line.
We're going to do it by directional drill, and because of the size of the wall thickness on 8-inch HDP, it gives us effective flow area of 6-inch. But we're going to do it by, the plan is by directional drill.
Okay. Total cost of $43,377.30.
That's fire line, that's fire lane.
Fire line, excuse me.
That's okay.
I don't see as well as I used
We
to.
would have to buy an easement here.
And again, the funding for that source is the fire hydrant.
Fire hydrant fund.
We put it in.
Motion by Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 19, OUA surplus land sale.
I got public comments.
This is sorry, that's going to be separate.
Oh, here we
That will
go.
not be your 3-read binder. The public auction for the properties that were up for bid was held on March 3rd. Parcel 1 did sell for $185,000. Parcel 3 sold for $710,000. Parcel 2 did not sell because it did not reach the target goal that was established by the board action, that it would be 95% of the higher of the 2 assessment values.
And that's Coker property.
That is the Coker parcel, yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a lot of information there showing you, giving you the recap of the sales. The high bidder for parcel number 2 did has made an offer for the purchase of the property at $727,200. 272.73. Mr. Brent Tucker is here representing the buyer to extend that offer to the board for consideration. You have several choices here. You can accept the offer, you can reject the offer and do nothing, or you can direct staff to look at other options for the sale of the parcel. What that may be, I don't know. We'd have to bring that back to you. But like I said, Mr. Tucker is here today to extend, I believe, to extend that offer to the board for consideration, and it will be the board's pleasure to take action of what they deem correct.
Just to refamiliarize the board with the marching orders you gave me when we went in to handle this auction sale, and John just said it, but I'll reaffirm it, that I was to go ahead and take 95% of the highest appraised value, which is $982,083, and that would be our threshold number that we would take on this piece of property. We were offered $727,000, and because the board did not allow me to accept that, that's why it was not accepted, and we are here today. Mr. Tucker, would you like to come up and speak?
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Executive Director Hayford, Mr. Conley. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with all of you. My name is Brandon Tucker, for the record. I'm the president of the Tucker Group Real Estate Brokerage Firm here in Okeechobee on behalf of my client. I want to first and foremost congratulate this board for an excellent way of handling a difficult process that's been going on for a very long time. You did a great job in hiring one of the finest appraisal firms in the area, SF Holden. You did a great job in hiring one of the best auction firms in Elliott Paul & Company, who's done a lot of work here in Okeechobee County. I believe as a real estate broker, being in the business here for the last 21 years and selling right at about $500 million with a B in land in this region over that time, that you had a very successful auction sale. As you know, as a matter of public record, the appraisals that SF Holden had provided on the parcel at Nubbin Slough, 99.36 acres, appraised for $745,000, in which our total contract price, because the buyer has to pay a buyer's premium plus all closing costs in an auction format, my buyer was paying $781,000 based upon an appraisal of $745,000. The Coker property furthermore appraised for $762,000. We extended an offer of $800,000 at the auction on that property. As you also know, the Okeechobee County Property Appraiser's Office has assessed the property at Nubbin Slough for approximately $620,000, and the property at the Coker property, as we know it, at around $1 million. I think if Mr. Bandy was here to speak to you this morning, he would explain to you the method of what's called mass appraisal technique that every property appraiser in the state of Florida has to use to value properties. And when you're in a rural county that has very limited transactions, especially on a property like these two, this isn't just necessarily straight ag property because of the urban residential mixed-use land use, the potential future upside that is there potentially for these properties down the road. So when you have limited transactions over a 10-year period, probably 2 or 3 over that 10-year period, it's very difficult under a mass appraisal technique to come up with very solid numbers. And I think you see that because you have just as much of a discrepancy on the low end on the Nubbin Slough property at a $620,000 assessment as you have on a $1 million assessment on the Coker piece, almost a $400,000 gap there. But at the end of the day, when I'm trying to sell a piece of property and I'm representing a seller, there's 2 things that I love to have when I'm dealing with a buyer. And that is an adjacent landowner with the means to purchase. And then even on top of that is if I have a tenant in possession that also has a vested interest in keeping that property because he's improved it and he's already there. And in the instance of the 99-acre parcel, that parcel is immediately adjacent to my buyer's existing ranch operation. He's been leasing that property from the OUA for many years. And so we had an adjacent landowner who was also the tenant in possession, who was bidding against 2 other people that were qualified to bid, and he was the high bidder, and you accepted that offer, and we appreciate that. Furthermore, with the 100-acre parcel known as the Coker property, we had an adjacent landowner, Mr. Ed Walpole, who was there bidding on the property, who's on the flea market there next to it for many, many years, very familiar with the property. We know he's fully capable of purchasing the property. And my buyer, once again, he outbid the adjacent landowner. My buyer sees some future potential for that property down the road. He clearly understands that, as I've advised him, that I don't see any development potential, honestly, for that property in the next 10 years. The older I get, the more I realize how quick 10 years goes by. 20 years out, I'm not going to try to answer that question because it's just too far out. But in the previous conversations that we had on another subject here just a little while ago, I already explained to you why we need jobs here, why there's not a lot of demand for that type of housing, that development. We all understand that. We've already discussed it. So in light of understanding the great job that this board has done, you got an excellent appraisal that was done. You've surpassed those appraised amounts, looking at this in a holistic approach. And I would look at this as a holistic event. This was 3 properties that sold. I think you did extremely well. The one thing that can deter you sometimes in an auction format is simply just expectations. And if your expectations may be a little off, if you don't quite get there, then you may feel disappointed. But at the end of the day, when you know the market's represented, there were buyers there competing, they brought their money. My buyer flew in from Italy the night before into Miami at about 11 o'clock and drove here for the sale. So it shows you the motivation they had to be here to purchase. So with that all being said, understanding the assessed values are not really something that you should gauge on, just as you had the low end on the Nub and Slough piece and the high end on the Coker piece. You had very good appraisals. You achieved and surpassed those appraisals in some instances. And understanding where the market is in Okeechobee being very good and stable for the last 40 years. We're in a very, very good real estate market. This is the best real estate market that I have seen since we had the run-up in the 2004-07 range, which we know how unrealistic that was. But outside of that unrealistic time, this is the best real estate market I've seen in this county in my 21 years in the business. So I would encourage the board to accept the offer that we have extended. I believe that you're representing the taxpayers of Okeechobee well. You've done a great job in vetting this process, and I believe that you receive full market value for the properties that day. If there's any questions from the board, I'd be glad to take them then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any questions for Brandon? It's up to us now.
Very good.
I guess the only thing I would have to say is your client willing to come up to our threshold of 982,083, Brandon?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I appreciate all the work that Brandon's people's put into it, but, you know, we set on this parcel 3, started out at 400,000 when we got it, and it sold for 700. How long have we had it? 3 years, 4 years?
Something like that.
And we made $50,000 on cattle lease off of it. I would suggest parcel 2, you sit on another year and take the market again. That's what I would do.
I agree with that.
I agree too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely set our threshold. The threshold was not met. So we're following board action. You know, this is what we were told to do.
It's what we pre-decided.
We have complied with everything we decided here. So we can definitely do that and come back at another time.
You're not bound. You're not bound.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yep.
There we go. Mr. Tucker, sorry. We're going to take our time on this.
We appreciate it.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, so I'm clear. So $982,000 is a number that you would need in a contract form?
That was the number on set. Mr. Elliott knew that number going in, and that number has never changed.
Okay, so the 982 is I just want to be clear, is a gross contract price.
Nope, that is the OUA's portion of.
So 982 plus
Mr.
plus
Elliott's
premium.
portion, yes.
Very good. Just want to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandon.
Okay, moving on. I've lost my agenda. Agenda item number 20, mechanical integrity testing at 1W1 at Cemetery Road Wastewater Treatment Facility. Is that 1W1?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking consideration of this proposal. At the Cemetery Road facility, we do have an injection well, which we use to dispose of effluent from the treatment plant. It is really our wet weather management tool. If we cannot go to the spray irrigation on site or spray irrigation off site, we do have a means to dispose the effluent that's coming in every day. We have to put it somewhere. As a part of the DEP permitting process for this injection well, every 5 years, we have to do this mechanical integrity testing of the well casing to make sure that it is still fully operational, and that this water does go down to about 3,400 feet before being discharged out of the wellhead. We're required to do this by DEP. McNabb Hydraulic Consulting has been our engineer of choice since day one as far as for the design, construction services, and the operational permitting for this well. I asked them to give us a proposal for the necessary mechanical integrity testing, of which you can see their proposal that's attached to this agenda item. It's in the amount of $20,000. This is only being brought to the board today for consideration. Otherwise, I'd have to bring it back next month. This has to be done within a timely fashion to meet the current operational permit requirements for this well.
Well, $20,000 is pennies if it fails.
Well, as a reminder, I believe that well cost us shade over $6 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm
and
saying.
All I get to look at is 6 feet of pipe. So
Yeah.
$9 a foot. They had a drill rig out there for a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of pipe disappeared. So,
And with today's environmental group, you had a leak 100 feet down, they would be.
It is an integral part of our operation. We do have to have this, as I said, as a wet weather management tool. The wastewater is going to come in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have to have a place to put it somewhere. And if we can't go to our on-site holding ponds, on-site irrigation, or off-site to the citrus ag operations, the well is the choice. I might suggest to you the well is also permitted for around 12 million gallons, of which we are in some early discussions with the Water Management District that they might be able to utilize it as a discharge point also.
I'll make a motion that we have McNabb however you say that.
Hydrologic.
Yeah, there you go. Consulting.
McNabb.
Yeah, McNabb Consulting, Inc., for $20,000, do the mechanical integrity testing on the Cemetery Road wastewater treatment facility, the injection well.
Motion by Mr. Cluck.
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. Further discussion? Being
Could
none.
before you do that, let me ask a question, please. John, did you get other quotes? Is this
No,
a
sir.
sole source or what?
They are the engineer of record for this operation. They are already under proposal to do a new operating permit for us, and this was just an extension to that ongoing permitting work. I did not go out and get any second or third quotes.
Yeah, it's almost like a sole source.
I treat it as an extension to an existing contract. we have.
Okay. Okay.
You good with that? Don't
Any
get me in
further
trouble now.
discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving right along, public comment. Hi, Jennifer.
You keep getting further back.
Yeah.
It was a full house when you got here, wasn't it? Yeah, don't be weird. It was good to see you. Agenda item number 22, Mr. Conley.
Okay. Several things. Number one, on the Culbreth car property, which was parcel number 1, the board needs to approve the contract and ratify its execution by the chairman.
Okay. They had approved my execution,
Because
but
you
now they need to ratify.
Approve the contract and ratify the execution by the chairman,
Okay.
number 1.
What's the ratify?
We sold the property.
Okay, so-
We did.
This is the first time you've seen the executed
That's the first time
contract,
we've
so
seen
you're
the
approving
executed.
it, and you're ratifying its execution by the chairman.
So said.
Motion by Mr. Clay,
Second.
second by Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 2 on the Cobra contract, I prepared, I had this discussion with them at the sale. The OUA has a sewer line that runs down the alley that goes through the middle of that block.
They're not going to build a building on top of it, are they?
Well, right now,
Grocery store?
we own the alley, no question about it. We own both alleys. There's a north-south alley that goes halfway up the block, and then there's the east-west, goes all the way across. Since we've got that sewer line in there, we need to reserve an easement where the alley formerly was. So and I told Gil that at the conclusion.
Or he can pay to move it.
Or he could say, move it.
Or he can pay to move it.
Well, what I'm recommending is that the board approve the addendum that I prepared that says that we are reserving the utility easement down the old alley that's been abandoned. That's double talk. We need to reserve the utility easement east-west across that block over the old alley.
So said.
Okay, motion by Mr. Clay to approve the easement.
Second.
Is that correct?
Just for clarification, it is the addendum to the same.
Addendum.
That's the word I was looking for.
Because the alley is still platted.
Right.
We need to reserve the easement where the alley was.
Across the alley.
Okay, motion Mr. Clay, second Mr. Nelson. So,
To approve the addendum.
right, I just had something just went out. All these came into mind, but I just.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, on the Cobrath property, I know it's going to be assigned, I don't know whether it's going to be an entity or what, we've not seen the assignment yet. I need the board to authorize the chair and the executive director to sign all closing documents in connection with the sale of that property.
So said.
Motion, Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Conley, I was approached by Bert the other day wanting a copy of the appraisal for this property. Do we have that?
I can send it to him.
Please do.
No problem. Now, let me go to the Nubbin Slough LVA property, do the same thing. We need approval of the contract and ratification of its execution by the chair.
So said.
Motion, Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now, I'd like to see an action that would authorize the chair and the executive director to sign all documents in connection with the closing on the sale of that parcel.
So said.
Motion, Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Last, and I started to bring this up earlier when we were talking about Pine Ridge Park. Hopefully this will close the chapter on Pine Ridge Park. In the original contract, and there was an addendum to it, when they conveyed the water retention area to the OUA,
We got to give it back.
we're supposed to reconvey it back, but to keep the property where we put our lift station. I have prepared a deed that I would like the board to authorize the reconveyance and the execution of that deed back to the Virginia L. Gadsden Limited Family Partnership for the property less where our lift station is.
So said.
Motion, Mr. Clay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I think that's the extent of what I've got to present to you guys today.
And you think that's the end of Pine Ridge?
That hopefully will be the end of Pine Ridge, yes, yes. It's been a long, twisted path.
Yeah, it has.
Just a question, have we heard anything about the 47th Street properties or
Well, it's funny you would ask me that. I had an email from Mr. Melville last week, he had read an article in the paper about our auctions. Of course, he was familiar with the Land Ventures and the Coker property because he's been involved in litigation with us on both of them. He wanted to know how that turned out, that he knew the one turned out very well. How'd the other one? Well, it didn't sell. And he wanted to know, he made the comment that the 46th trailer park out there was very quiet. He hadn't heard him, nothing's going on, so maybe he needs to prod them a little bit. But I don't know anything more than you do. There was a deadline for them to respond to some discovery. They've not done it. I predict we'll bring that to the attention of the judge and see if we can get an order to compel them to produce what they're supposed to produce. But other than that, I don't know anything more on that lawsuit, which is probably good news because we're the defendant. When nothing's going on, it's a good sign. Usually the plaintiff is the one that's moving, pushing things, so.
Does it still have the same owners?
Rocky. Well, it's kind of.
Well, I don't know what the affiliation is, but the Rockies are behind the scenes. It's in a trust now. So, you know what I'm talking about, Tommy? Were you here when we started talking about the lawsuit and all that kind of stuff? So, yeah.
I was here when you were arguing after you put the meter in.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and the master meter's there.
Is that what it was? Now it's come back.
And they've been paying the bill. And now all of a sudden, why the lawsuit came, I don't know. We went out.
What'd you do, John?
The two Johns and I and Hal Melville went out there and toured the property and looked at it, and we don't understand what has brought this about, but.
Now, if they fail to comply with discovery, can we file a motion to dismiss?
Well, it doesn't work quite that easily. Usually you get a motion to compel. The judge will enter an order, you will do such and such. And if they still fail to do it, then there's the possibility of sanctions. But the court's been over backwards usually on these kind of things. They're not anxious to just throw one out. It's a little bit more involved than that. Jeff, you can speak to that.
They're not paying Harold Melville's fee. We are.
What's that?
Especially Judge Heisey right now. He's going through all the cases with fine-tooth comb. He's been stale on the bush for like he wants something done.
There's one in LaBelle right now doing the same thing. He
Judge
wants
Heisey
all.
transferred here from the coast in January, and I guess he was tasked with cleaning up the old cases that no one's pushing. And he sent all the attorneys that are on record said, "Look, do something with it, or I'm dunking it." So.
And it should. It shouldn't just sit there on the books. I agree with that.
Yeah, we got one going on in Glades right now that the judge is really being good. He's doing everything. He's doing all the due diligence. And when he doesn't have something, he's putting off, I want this. I said, we're excited.
Well,
asking all the questions that's never been asked.
Well, they probably should, but you don't have the caseload down there that you do on the coast, and hopefully here.
That's where all the
it's
Pierces
growing,
live.
but
These are civil, not criminal.
The Pierces got to go to court.
Okay, moving right along. Anything else, sir?
Could you say that again?
no, that's it. Thank you.
Agenda item number 23, John.
Nothing, sir.
Nothing. Nothing?
I'm agenda item.
You're at a loss for words. That's very rare.
No, things are going fine. The budget process at the state level is close. We'll get an answer here within the next couple weeks. I've heard scuttlebutt, but we'll wait and see what comes out of it, and we'll go from there. Some of it very positive, some of it isn't.
Thank you, John. Any items from the board?
Yeah, guys, I've been gone quite a bit. I actually left 7 months ago. And before I left, I got permission from the mayor to do what I did. And I'm finished up there, so I'm back. So I'll be back to do my job. And thank you for bailing me out.
My honor.
I got the vote a couple times. You know, in times of this nature, you can move closer to us. We love it.
I did shower.
Before you adjourn, let me tell you one more thing. This deals with the Nubbin Slough Park property down there. There's a discrepancy, there's a discrepancy in the legal description. The problem is caused by where it's called a point of commencement. You pick a point and then you start moving around for the legal description. Originally, when the deed came out to Land Ventures, it stated a point of commencement in the deed as being at the southwest corner of one of the lots that fronts on the highway.
I remember that.
And it went so many feet, so many feet. Later, there was a corrective deed that started at the southeast corner of that particular lot. It's 100 feet wide. There's a 100-foot discrepancy, which means the property appraiser's office did not pick up that correction. So it, all the way through the process and our deed, which we got, the tax deed, it's based on that 100-foot shortage because it starts at the southwest corner of the lot. The result is, and it's a good result, the result is it's a 100-foot overlap on our neighbor who is our successful buyer. I don't see that being a major problem because the rest of the description, you go north a fixed number of feet, no problem. Then you go east a certain number of feet, but you're going to a point. It's a point that's identified. So it doesn't matter if that footage is wrong or the bearing is wrong, you're going to a point. That controls. From there on, you're going to the highway. That point controls. Then you're going around the lots that are, so that the overall difficulty with the description is limited to that 100-foot overlap.
That he owns.
That he owns.
Yep.
If it was a different neighbor, I could see it being a problem. I really don't anticipate that being, they may adjust the description. I don't care if they do, because we can't go back and just get a corrective deed because our deed's based on the tax assessments. You can't just change them now after the fact. So that's the only hitch that I see, and I don't see it being much of a hitch. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to belabor.
No, that's okay. Good to know. Any other items? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good job, guys. There's a lot of stuff on this agenda, John. Thank you very much.
Hey, it was an interesting process.